I have been trying to do something. I have been trying to make videos, not as many, but that's for a reason, because I'm working on that book, because I'm got some projects, and when I make my videos, I'm trying to focus on stuff that may be practical and theoretical to you, but I don't. I've been making a lot of videos over years now on this UDF approach. And I hope you don't say, there he goes again, let's turn off this stupid video. And I hope you will continue watching this one because it's finally getting there. And I've spent so much time. And if I could find anybody who says, and I'll talk about this later, I want to really try this. I promise you, I'll really work with you. You got to send an email to me. I got to put my email address in there somewhere. And then I'm sorry, I don't use the rest of the stuff enough. Okay, so I'm going to, of course, switch to Excel very soon. But I'm also doing this presentation because Kenny Whitlaw, a friend who developed fast and everything else, which I've criticized but too much, I'm going to focus this time not on all this details and mechanics and everything else. I'm going to focus on how it really works, what it really can do, how you can implement it really easily. These are the things we've been working on now for years. I'm going to show you that I've noticed something. I reviewed my first project finance case, which was called Southport Minerals, which is a dramatic big mine that was made. It's Freeport, really. Freeport McMoran, and it was the Grasperk mine, a complete ripoff, unbelievable. But I looked at that old case, 60s, and you see that project financing was a lot more simple. Everybody had pari passu debt. There wasn't any sculpting. You just kind of, or who knows how the debt flows were worked out. You probably had a flat payment. And nowadays you have different debt issues, different kinds of sculpting, sizing the debt based on DSCR, sizing the debt based on the debt to capital ratio, mixing them both, doing a debt sizing with P50, P90, P99, doing a flexible DSCR where the DSCR isn't held constant, but it moves and hits a minimum over time and all of this stuff. And we can't have negative repayments and little constraints. The structuring of the debt has gotten more complex, and the modeling has to move along with that. And then the other question I get all the time is, okay, once we've structured the debt, once we fund the size of the debt, the repayment, then I want to do some risk analysis. Fine, whatever. I use a P50, P90, but whatever. But now I want to be able to put a downside case, a stress case. I want to see what the effect of a cash sweep is. I want to see what the effect of a cash trap is. I want to put different DSCRs in there, DSRAs in there. How do I do that? And that's what we're going to show you. And I hope that this method I have, finally, I have trouble with buying airline tickets. I put the wrong dates in. I have to put my credit card in. I'll screw up. I can't believe. Linking something to a little a formula in Excel, that's my analogy. I'm sure there are better analogies for that. But it's basically you got to link a couple things. You got to copy a little page into your Excel, and then you do it. And then hopefully you can do what's important. And what's important is not creating some goddamn monster model. What's important is being able to analyze, being able to quickly adjust your numbers, being able to make a really good presentation, to understand why you're getting different results in different cases, and be able to really negotiate terms, okay? And you might think, oh, this is some kind of black box, and I'll show you why it's not. The basic idea, very quickly to review, okay? we can't have the iteration button in Excel. I hope everybody knows that, although I went to a course and they said we have to deref, whatever in the hell deref is. Deref means you have a reference that comes because you've got an iteration button and you have to take it out, and they try to make some macros. Buttons, everybody hates buttons. I understand that. But this approach is much faster. I really believe it is than the copy and paste. I'll explain why. This approach will be able to separate that risk and structuring that I talked. It will be able to, the really important thing is allow you to put goal seeks back into your model without having to write goal seek codes around a copy and paste macro. And you can put, it'll allow you to do very, I hope, effective sensitivities and meetings. And I've already talked about the sculpting, but it allows you to automate the kind of really modern and more advanced method of sculpting that coming. And it also, this horrible thing in template models when you have a bunch of spares, a bunch of extra shit, if you use a UDF, you don't have to print it out. It's there, it's in the program. Who cares? It doesn't take any time away, but you don't have to just be limited by this Excel stuff, and it allows you to do auditing. And it's not intended to replace anything. No, if you think, I'm the best modeler, man, I am so goddamn good. I don't need any of your shit. Okay? But then you make your models like I do, and you make a copy and paste, and it just clunks along, and it sucks. 50 seconds or something for a copy paste. Oh, my God. Because you've got a really big model. You copy it, it's got to relink all the stuff. You've got to recalculate, paste it again, recalculate. That's the problem with really big models and the copy and paste. And Excel doesn't know, oh no, we don't really need to do that everywhere, just in a little part. Repeat. You think, oh, I can easily change from sculpting to risk analysis. No problem. I'm so good. And you say, oh, I don't care about a goal seek. I can just write a macro on my goal seek every time. So everybody's got to press a goal seek button. It goes through goal seek, comes back. Sometimes I don't need to press a goal seek, but I'm good enough. Who cares? And then, oh, when I sculpt, oh, I'm so good. I'm so good. I've got 5 different debt issues, different tenors on all the different issues, different interest rates. I'm going to figure out exactly how to structure this so the first debt issue is 10% and 20% and 30%. And I'm going to make sure that all the sculpting just works exactly the way the bankers wanted. I can do all that with some fancy math. Okay. And then when I give a model, I know I've got some macros and buttons there, but it says optimize. My models look cool. And even though I know the people who get them hate pressing these buttons and go like crazy and start shaking when they press, but I don't care. Okay, and I can easily, if I want to change the method from debt to capital to P90 and P50 and different DSCRs, I can easily do that. I can just kind of do it really efficiently. And, I'm so good. I don't have to have checks. And I'm going to, the auditors never catch one tiny little mistake where I take debt issue number 3 and I've used debt issue interest rate number 2. I'm so good. It's just, I never make a mistake like that. And I just think my job is such a cool job. I just want to make this big, beautiful model and use all the standard stuff. Okay? So here's an example of what this model does. Now, I've done this a little bit before, and I hope I'm not going to screw up and have to do this. Okay, and I'm really now practicing. And instead of showing you the engine behind it and the mechanics of how to do this, I'm going to show you how it works. And in this case, I have different options for sculpting. I have different options where we could use P90 and use P90 with cash flow, P50, P99, use different interest rates. We could use the debt to capital, which I'm on right now, or we could use what I'll show you in a minute, a flexible sculpting method. Okay, so now, how about this? Okay, I'm going to change and I put all, now I've done this a little differently. You, I hope, use input C, input S. Maybe you don't. I've seen Americans don't do that still, but whatever. And I added two columns. I added a fixed column so you could change it. Let's make the debt to capital 85%. Okay, now when you make the debt to capital 85%, you can see, the UDF just ran. And we got our new sculpting. And here's what happened. We have 4 different debt issues. One debt issue is longer. The aggregate DSCR is the same across the whole term. And we have different, this was an earlier term. They have different interest rates, and it's structured so the size of the debt, this is whatever input, you put a percentage in, you put a input for, and I understand that that's typically how you model this. You put different structures in. Now, what I did here is I made some scenario where the tenor is all the same so we can really understand what's going on, and others where it's different. And you have a page where you just work through and structure the debt based on different P50s, P90s. I'm not going through all the stuff there, and then we can change it. Now, once you have this case, then we can move over to the risk analysis and say, I want to see what happens in a that downside case is not so good now, because I just made some random, I made a downside case where I changed the sensitivity to 84% from 50%, and shoot, it doesn't really work. Or if I just want to do a sensitivity based on O&M costs going up, we've got some problems here, and the DSCR just barely makes it. Or I want to do a sensitivity when we change whatever, this was the degradation, okay? And here is the big deal. You notice that when I'm running this, there's no little menu thing that pops up. The structuring is all finished. Now let's say I want to do my structuring a little bit differently. Let's say we're structuring this project on the basis of a P50 instead, okay? You can see it goes around the iterations. I'm sorry for those value. And then the target DSCR with a P50 I said was 1.3, and that's the same as the LLCR and the DSCR that's produced. Now there's a little page that goes through your kind of debt sizing, and there's another separate page that goes through a cash flow waterfall and how to evaluate defaults, how to evaluate cash traps, and everything else. And I'm making a second video that works through all the cash flow waterfall issues, and I'm putting some volatility and mean reversion. I'm not doing this in this one. In this one, I'm just focusing on the structuring and the sizing. Notice this time I put all the debt in the same. And what we need to do to get these is we need to first compute the aggregate DSCR to make sure it's 1.3. Then when we split this into the different components, we've got to make some kind of present value calculation. And I use something called an LLCR method for this. And make sure that this is all working. And then if I want to do a debt sizing analysis against that, I can go to my downside case. I can even put a stress test case. Well, that looks bad, but we do have some room in the PLCR, so stress case isn't so good, but we'd have to restructure, and maybe that would be okay, because we have a tail. I showed this to somebody, he said, I don't like the colors. Screw it. And then, but maybe the P90 with a different DSCR and a different cash flow level gives you a different size of the debt. And you kind of walk through, this is a lower debt, so we'd actually have to use the P90, or maybe we use the P99. And that's how fast it is. And then just imagine, you could change any DSCRs, any interest rates, you could change the tenors. In this case, again, I have a different structure for the different debt. What happens if we could get a different debt issue? slink it in here. We can do all of that this efficiently and then move over and understand that some people in a bank are fancy. They make a lot of money because they're the risk analysis people. Now we put the same level of debt in and we do the same kind of downside analysis, blah, 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 even upside analysis. The investor can look what's happening, okay? And other people at the bank do risk analysis. These people are the fancy investment bankers. These are the horrible, poor people who have to write credit reports. And these people want to become these people. The worst of it all is to be a modeler. Oh my gosh, that's when you really want to get out of things. But really, my life has not gotten out of modeling, and I've learned a lot. I hope some. This is just what this UDF is just a compilation of knowledge. Okay, now let's go a little. Let's move to some other debt structuring issues. Okay, and let's move to, we're going to move to the debt to capital. In the debt to capital approach, you fix the level of debt, and you can't, I hope everybody knows, you can't fix the level of debt and fix the DSCR. The DSCR now is an output, and here the DSCR is flat. Okay, but it's conceivable and actually very probable that somebody could give you a minimum DSCR, and this happens to Hedy a lot. She's got a minimum DSCR, and she's got to do a fancier restructuring using a goal seek. And can you see, and I'm a little bit upset right now, that took a little more time. It took a little more time because I had to reprogram a goal seek into this thing, and now we get down to this DSCR. Now, this isn't really interesting. Okay, but let's do a little more interesting. Let's say I'm going to change the cash flow. Now, when you change the cash flow, this is kind of bad. You notice that I'm rerunning this UDF each time, but I don't want to do that. So all I do is turn off the thing, and then I'm going to put this so it's not, I can put an increasing growth case, and I'm going to put a higher cash flow case, and then I'm just going to hit this one that says redo the model, okay? So you can do all your inputting and all that separately. We've worked for years in trying to really get this to a stage, and notice this time the bank said, we're satisfied with 1.2. But then if you're an investor, you say, what happens if I can have a higher DSCR here and get a lower DSCR? And I've seen this happen. We've seen this happen in Africa all the time. Okay, so the LLCR, which is kind of like an average DSCR over the life of the loan, is much higher. And we do that, and we get some dividends out here earlier, and that increases the IRR. So if we take this same cash flow, now, can you imagine, and by the way, if you change and this tenor goes out here, then this tenor would have to capture all the debt, and you have this formula that says, the standard formula that's the NPV of the debt service is the size of the debt. But if you've got multiple issues, you could take the NPV of the total, I'm sorry, not the NPV. You can take the cash flow divided by the debt service for the first, the aggregate debt issue, subtract the debt service for the other issues, and get the remainder that goes into this flexible debt issue at the end when nothing is outstanding. And that gives you your pattern. Now, we're on the base case, so if you change this and go back to the debt to capital method, and I know, okay, it's going to take a tiny bit of time, you notice there's no button. Can you imagine being able to go through this in a meeting, be able to change all of your kind of things? And we got from 15.58 to, in this case, whatever, come on, it's got to go through again, it's got to go through a little more math, and I struggled with the modeling the goal seeks to get it as fast as I possibly can. and you can see how long, okay? And then you get to 16.76. Now, if you use the P90, you still use 80/20, but when you're structuring the repayment, you use a P90. And did I put a different DSCR in here? If I put the same DSCR and I structure the repayment and they say, no, you can do this, but use the P90 instead, then you can really evaluate things. Now the important here, so now we got 16, we have 16.06. That's how it works. If you say, shit, I can do all of that myself, well, good. Okay, I certainly couldn't, and there's a whole lot of math in here, and that's kind of our first page. Now, if I'm going to kind of continue a little bit with a little bit of history. Okay, I was interrupted by phone calls. Hate it. Now, the way we started this is students wanted to see, can we do a project finance model with no iteration button? That we know doesn't work. No copy paste. Can't we just get rid of this stuff? A lot of people still ask that. Well, around that time when I got these questions, I tried this goal seek thing. So when we were working on computing a PPA rate from a DSCR target, a debt to capital target, whatever, when we're doing this, we I thought, okay, I don't want to redo the goal seek at the end to get the IRR equal to, and you should do it with the NPV, not IRR, blah, 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 blah. And I don't want to put a macro in there and have to press this button. I want it just to be automatic, so I can just go change the little debt to capital ratio or DSCR, and it changes everything, and it's all nice and automatic. So I made a little goal seek. And then I thought, oh, well, you can solve the circular reference with a goal seek. That's kind of one of these methods. So why can't we try it? And I tried that, and it worked. And then I was not going to do this anymore. Okay, but this is my really, really simple example of just what a user-defined function is and why you don't have to have a button for a user-defined function and what you have to do. And in this case, we had fees, is the debt times the fee percent. But the total funding is driven by the fees. So the debt is driven by this. This is driven by this, but this is driven by the debt. And you have a circular reference, a natural kind of circular reference. Now, instead of making a copy and paste, you just make a little function, not a function, and put in these different variables. Now, if you have 100 different variables, it gets really painful, and you have to click on all the different 100 variables. So it would become not possible pretty quickly. And then you make just a do-while loop like you would with any circular reference, but in here, you have to redo uses equal CapEx times plus fees. Debt equals uses plus debt percent, fees equals debt, and the fees is here, the fees are here. We got to go around and around because of that, and it all works. It all works. And you notice, can you imagine you have some enormous model, but you limit the circular reference to some kind of, fees, IDC, DSRA, something like that. And there's a limited number of equations, and you're not going to the model, copying it, pushing putting something in the model. You're doing this all basically outside of the model. That's kind of the way it works. So we tried this. We tried it with a simple case, and I started writing UDFs into models and said, oh, look, it's not that hard. It takes, 100 lines or something. What a pain it really was. And then I worked with Hetty, and she said, oh, no, we want multiple issues. We can't just have one single issue. And she said, let's make a template. But then when we put a template in, there was so much data, we started running into the problems. And I had tried to make it. I thought I had something good worked out, and it sucked. So at COVID, Hetty and I completely rewrote everything. I just started from scratch, and she told me, hey, here's what I want. And we made this model, we made this system that I'm showing you now, which hopefully you can go and change yourself. Hopefully it's a system that's really workable. Okay, and I showed you this on-off stuff, and we worked on more complicated sculpting, and now Kenny Whitlaw, we met in London, we had some beers, and he wanted to be innovative. And it's really good that he wants to do that. I love it. Okay, and so we worked with him, and we tried it on an early case, and it was a disaster, frankly. It just didn't work. And then we tried it again on a really, real big model, and it did speed up. Now, here's kind of what Hedy emphasizes. When we do this model, you can still do the copy paste. You can still do all your sculpting equations if you want. You can have drill down reports that show you exactly how the UDF is coming up with some numbers and how those compared to the numbers that would come with a regular old copy paste. And a side benefit is really you get this. So I make this little thing where I say, here's one approach, here's one. If this engine goes out, this engine still works. So you've got two ways to do it, and they should both be equal. They should both give you the same result. Hopefully I haven't made a bunch of errors in the UDF. You can change those, and let's show you what I mean by this. Okay, so if you, now I'm going to go back to the debt to capital method, because that's the way I designed the case. Okay, and here we have different repayments, but this time I'm going to only focus, and I have a structuring model. In this structuring model, okay, we have some cash flow available, we have some construction expenditures and construction period, and then we have some, and of course, I'm going to put this model on the website, and you might say, "Oh, what a fucking idiot! Idiot this guy is. He's doing this stuff and giving it away." And well, I'm not, because I want you to be interested in it. Otherwise, it's worth zero. So now, if I right now, all of these things come from the simple computed numbers. There's no fixed number. Right now, this comes from a computed number, all the interest, the fees, and all this. And the interest and the fees, they're all from the sum of all the debt issues. And all the debt issues are one by one. You go through these. And the repayments on the debt issue, by the way, come from the UDF, and the debt size comes from the UDF. Now, if you change it and turn off the UDF, now we can do the old-fashioned copy and paste. Just a minute, I have to change something. Let's go into our input C structure. Let's put a 85% debt to capital ratio in. Now, with this 85% debt to capital ratio, we have some differences, and we run the copy and paste. So we set the fixed equal to the computed until the difference goes down to zero, and we can add in other differences related to things like taxes and sculpting, and there are a whole lot of other things that come out. The DSRA, the LC fees on the DSRA account, which would be part of the CFADS. So we run the copy and paste, and it's easy. It's not bad. Fine. This is not a gigantic model. If it was a really big model, it might clunk around. Okay. And then if I turn on the UDF, okay, it took a long time there. Then I have the UDF, and the UDF, UDF put in, all we had to do was put in the amount of the debt from the UDF, just like this, and we get exactly the same result. And if you want to leave your old copy and paste in here for the model auditors, or do this with and without the UDF, you can do that. You know, maybe for your presentations and for your meetings, you could do the UDF and show you how it works, or explain to the auditors that you get the same result, and explain to them really what you're doing. and then you have your kind of whatever. We have a little structuring page. So obviously this isn't a very big model, and that's why the copy and paste worked so quickly. Okay, so that's how it works. And then now let's show you something else. Okay, let's say I would like to do some of this drill down business, okay, to verify each item. If I want to really verify each item, okay, so what you can do now, at the very end, there's a UDF input. And this UDF input has some blue numbers. They shouldn't really be blue. They come, I need CapEx, I need EBITDA, I need to explain how we're doing the debt to capital. For each debt issue, I need to know what percentage is, I need to know the tenor, I need to know a commitment fee, and I can get more stuff, okay, depending on, if it's got withholding taxes and other things like that. You notice, by the way, when I change anything in this UDF input, then the function runs, and I tell people I want to see how it runs. Then we put our DSRA parameters in, our tax parameters, and you can add your own taxes in, your working capital facility, your VAT, your political risk insurance, and then you can put different reports in. So if I want this thing called a summary report, now the model will run a touch slower if you do this. You almost could see it, hopefully, running a touch slower. When you get this summary report, oh, it looks like crap. So what you do is when you get it, I just did something wrong, but that's okay. Let me do this again. I was supposed to put no here. I just added this just for this video, and I forgot to do it. And then if you don't like this report, I am so sorry. If it's not got the right colors and the right format for a banking presentation, I am so sorry. But we have the interest during construction computed for each one of these facilities. So let's look at the interest during construction on facility 1099. It's got a sum total just like the rest of it. Now this is a purely optional report, and when you here's the 1099. We'd have to redo the copy and paste. I'm sorry, we'd have to redo that. But the 1099, I'll have to do that just a minute, because I've got to turn off the UDF for a minute. And there's the 1099. Okay, it gives you exactly the same number. So you can go and check your numbers, and I could put the UDF from the summary report, but I don't want to do that, because I can also get a report that's very, very detailed on all the CFADS and the taxes, on exactly how we did the debt sizing issue by issue and all the mathematics that go into it. And these reports, if you looked at these reports, they would be equivalent to the size of a fairly large model. You can look at all the weighted cost of debt and the debt IRR, all the sources and uses of funds, and really detail how you're doing the pro rata, all these reports. And instead of this, I'm going to put 0 here, and I'm only going to, now I have to turn the UDF back on. And this is kind of our discovery. At the end of the day, the hard part behind sizing the debt is just coming up with just a couple of numbers. Now, if I wanted to reformat this, it's kind of a waste, but this time I'll put yes. And we just need the repayments. And I also like to get the weighted average interest rate for each of the different debt issues. I don't put anything else, and that makes the thing work much faster. And that's how the whole thing kind of works. So you have to basically put all your inputs in here, okay? And then once you put all your inputs in here, you get some kind of output that can be just a very nice little summary that is really necessary for your report, or it can have much more in it. Okay, and then here we tried debt structuring. I've got some, it's a mess. where I try to do it by hand. I don't even bother anymore, really, because if we can prove that our DSCR is equal to our target DSCRs, where are the DSCRs here? We can get that. Of course, you can have changing DSCRs and a whole lot. And now I'm going to go back to our summary page again. So, okay, if we would have really made this structuring model, so I put either a DSCR method or a debt to capital method, and I change it, it gets painful. It gets painful. In another video, I'll go through all of that. Oh, we got too much debt to capital here. I'll just put it back. Okay, so that's the mechanics. Now here's the, if you are really, oh no, I didn't mean to do that. I meant to go here. Okay, if you're, so I on the next page I just show you how you use these reports. Now, if you really want to do this, you can use these reports and you can write your own equations. You don't have to write them the way I did. You write your own equations. You use the reports to verify things, just like I kind of showed you. But big ones would be, is the CFADS and taxes, are they working exactly the same in our parallel UDF model? And you can modify code and add equations. When you modify code and add the equations, here's the way it works. This is what Hedy really worked on with me. You see, we have all these little things. These are actually read into the model. So the model doesn't read all those other variables. It doesn't read anything. What it reads is look at this. It's this gigantic thing, and the UDF inputs go from line 6 to line 282. So it just reads all the UDF inputs in here, and then it assigns it to these variables. And some of these are constants, like this, and some of these are time series when it moves from period to period. And you just have to set this up so you've got a construction period or a development period, a construction period, and an operating period. You do really need that. You do need that. So there's a few constraints on how your model would be working. Okay, so that's a little bit on how it works. So you can be here. Here's the big issue. You're not losing control to some little black box. You're still, it's all Excel still. You're in the Excel and you're just getting better. You're getting better. You can add your own variables. You can do all your own sorts of stuff. If you really, and I'm going to stop it now. We need people to say, okay, I do want to try that. Maybe I got this big template model I want to try it with. And we need some people who are really going to be kind of early adopters. And we've done a little bit of it, Hedy and I'm talking about, where somebody comes in and they have such a mess in their model, they can't sculpt, they can't get, the model has to be rewritten, basically, not because of what we're doing, but just because there's no sense of getting the model right. You need to have kind of an idea about how you're going to make your model first. But if you have that, then please call us, because we want, it's doing us a favor being able to say we've tried this in different circumstances and it really works. It's like people look for these kind of beta tests, and hopefully, you know, what we would do then is after we get it to work, we want to get paid a little. We've worked on it for years and years without zero, no investor, no nothing. We want to give you a course in really, really understanding sculpting, in understanding things like if you have a cash funded DSRA, how that works, if it's included in the CFADS or not included in the CFADS, how you can design a sculpting so you never have a negative repayment, and how you can put a revolver in your analysis. You can put a revolver in your analysis so to eliminate all of that. Okay, and I'm going to stop the video right now.